This week on the channel, we're talking about John Coltrane. The group recorded 2 takes of roughly equal duration. These would become known as Edition 1 and Edition 2. At the end of the second take, Elvin Jones flung his snare at the studio wall, signaling his decision that for him, the date was over. Now, on John Coltrane's Ascension album, you have to ask yourself, was he finished when he threw the drum because of the exhaustion, or was he finished because it was just that exciting? This week, John Coltrane, the album is Ascension. It was recorded in 1966, and it was on what label?
The Impulse label.
Impulse label. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome to you all. Glad we could be here for you.
So let's talk about, how about this? What do you want to do? We're going to go free jazz on this, baby.
Yeah, let's start with a clip real quick.
Yeah, let's
The
do
one
it.
that we decided on. This is Edition 1, Part 1, right at 8 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and start that now. So this is John Coltrane Ascension, Edition 1, Part 1. That's my man Freddie there. That's my man Freddie laying it down.
He's laying something down, baby. This album was a step for John Coltrane into free jazz. And I've been struggling with this all week. Free jazz, avant-garde, what's the difference? And the more I really struggled with it, Wikipedia has its own, Jazz Dictionaries has its own, but the reality is that avant-garde was pushing the boundaries of what jazz was. And they were coming out of the 50s and the 60s, and especially out of the swing in the 40s, and they wanted to find this free movement to be able to speak, to be able to have their own voice, to break the chains and the molds that made jazz music. Avant-garde pushed it, and free jazz went over the edge. And there's an element of this that's more avant-garde than it is free jazz, but this is an album of active listening. You cannot put it on as background music and hope that you can enjoy it.
No way.
And that I want to just put that out there right away, because it did require a lot of attention. The thing that screwed me up last year, and the thing that really bothered me again this year, is that I keep listening to the whole album. It's Edition 1, Part 1. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Edition 1, Part 1, Edition 1, Part 2. Then they had Edition 2, Part 1, and Edition 2, Part 2. When they were finished, Coltrane decided that Edition 2 was what they were going to put and release on the album. So the first album to come out was Edition 2, Part 1 and 2. Later, everybody wanted Edition 1, Part 1 and 2. And if you really do listen to the album that I found on YouTube Music, it's got all 4.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's almost 80 minutes of avant-garde / free jazz music.
Yeah, the iTunes edition is that as well. It's all 4 parts.
It can get to be a little bit much, especially if you're trying to really pay attention.
Well, as unconnoisseurs, I struggle with free jazz in the aspect of, as soon as it comes on, all that I can picture is me walking into a high school band room with no band director, and they're warming up. And that's, to me, that's the feeling that I get with free jazz, is that they're all doing their own thing, and there's no direction. But it was funny because the quote that we used for Art Ensemble Week: "Why listen to one free jazz song when you can listen to four at one time? Why listen to one jazz song when you can listen to four at one time?" And that's kind of what your aspect of active listening. You have to actively listen to it. I tried doing it in the background as well this week. Actually, I tried doing it while I was reading. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way.
I was trying to type the family Christmas letter this morning, and I had it on, and I thought, no, there was no way I could concentrate on anything.
Right.
And I think you were gracious when you said high school. For me, it sounded more like junior high.
Yeah.
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 Fifth, sixth grade, seventh grade, where boom.
Yeah, they're kind of learning how to play their instruments. They're honking sometimes, they're squeaking sometimes, they're very, very loud because they want to play loud. They're very, very soft because they want to play soft. I mean, in my mind, that's what I picture as soon as a free jazz album comes on. Is just those kids just standing around with no direction and doing whatever they want. At least with Ascension, here's my take on Ascension. At least with Ascension, there are some breaks. There are, I don't want to say comedic breaks, some jazz breaks where they do get into a rhythm. They are playing in the same key. They're flowing along together, and then they break back off and go back and do their own thing. So those are the relief spots that I find in Ascension, especially. That you can look forward to. Oh, it's almost here. It's coming. Oh, there it is. Finally, they're swinging together. They're playing together.
Yeah.
And it lasts for a minute or two, and then all of a sudden, pew, pew.
And these songs are 17 to 20 minutes long. There's no doubt that a song can take you an eternity to get through. One of the things that I was most impressed about with this album and with Wikipedia is whoever's typed all the information in, there's a complete book on Wikipedia. You can surf through and get as much background information as you possibly want on this album. And it did block in a lot of commentary about the free jazz or avant-garde style that he chose. And then I ended up on a YouTube site that talks about this particular album and touches on what John Coltrane did. And I want to talk about that without getting into too much technical difficulties. He did come in with some type of chord progressions. And it lists 3, and there's a possible 4th. And Matt, this is go back to we're unconnoisseurs. I shouldn't know this, but I'm going to throw it out there. He came in with B-flat Aeolian. He came in with D Phrygian and F Phrygian, and the possible G-flat Lydian scales. So there were some tone structures, key structures to it, and he did play for them a melody that everyone was required to play in their solo. To come in on the solo, the last person playing had to get quiet. That was the tip of the hat to say, I'm done. And then the next guy started to play louder and louder, did his solo, and then got a little quieter. So there was some structure to this 20-minute song. And it hit me listening to it again, those breaks, when they all came together and they got quiet. Either the piano and bass played together, or
the drums and the bass.
The drums and the bass. Mm-hmm. You started to hear those moments where they calmed down, and then they launched again from there. There was a little structure, which is why it was geared more towards avant-garde than it was just free jazz. We're talking about a couple of free jazz artists, and we'll see one next week, where it has no structure, no tonality, no modality, no atonality, no rhythm, no sense, no nothing. But this one did have something to it. And I started to pick that. I listened to the album 5 times this week, 3 of which I just sat and listened. Nothing else going on. And so I got more jazzed about the album because of the understanding of what was going on. So,
yeah, I made it through 3 times this week, And like you, I like to sit down and try and do the whole album at one time. And especially with this album, you need to give yourself a break. Now, I kept thinking, I kept thinking for myself, who would I recommend this to? I'm not sure. You couldn't recommend this to a brand new listener.
No.
They wouldn't get it. It would be like feeding a baby wasabi and expecting them to enjoy it. So this is the wasabi that we're talking about.
But I will say this, Matt, we're on number 54. We have had 45 other albums prior to this, and so for us, it's no longer wasabi. And
No,
on
correct.
our own personal journey now being at, 17, actually 14, I'm sorry. We've had an opportunity to digest this and go back and reevaluate the album. So I think that anybody that's been listening from beginning to current, this isn't really a new structure or a new concept. It shouldn't be that difficult at week 55 or 45 to understand. But Dad, I'm looking at you in the corner there and thinking, you've been with us 15 episodes. So this
Lisa.
is the deep end. You got your mug finally.
Yes.
So, all right. So, Dad, let me ask you, what was your impression of the album?
It was tough for me to listen to it. And partly, I'm sure my brain, partly focus, partly taking the time to listen and trying to understand what's happening. Now, after probably the second time I listened to it, I could hear distinctively the sax coming through, and that part I appreciated. But it came through, and then it's like all this background noise, like we're saying, like a junior high practice room, band room, and I appreciated the sax coming through, but otherwise it just kind of it blew my mind. I had difficulty listening to it.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you listen to any other Coltrane this week besides Ascension?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you know that he's got, I don't want to say normal, but he's got more of a standard jazz side,
Mhm.
and then an album like Ascension. So you can appreciate his maybe artistry for, I don't know, how do you say it? For going out on a limb and trying
Yeah.
free jazz stuff with
Yeah.
Ascension.
I listened to a good bit of the Love Supreme
Yeah.
and Giant Steps. So,
Good.
Now, as unconnoisseurs and looking back at the 99 list and the 06 list, Love Supreme was number 2 on both of those lists. So we're assuming that Love Supreme is going to be somewhere in the top 5. So you'll have already heard that when we get to the top 5 there. But of course, we listen to it again once we get there for the recording week. So
I'll put it this way: if there's many more free jazz artists coming up, I might have to skip a few of them to get.
Well, then I'm officially uninviting you to next week's episode. You are free to skip, as both Matt and I are also free to skip. Because this is free jazz, baby. We're
Well, Matt
free to
and I
jazz it or not to jazz.
We had a conversation about that last week, didn't we, Matt?
we did, yeah.
Where you gave me permission to skip this next artist coming forward. So
What I told him was if he doesn't like Ascension, then there's no way that he's going to appreciate next week's artist. So I just relieved him of his co-host
You
duties.
know, some people don't like wasabi with their sushi. And if you don't like wasabi with your sushi, you're not going to love a cup full of horseradish.
or glass, broken glass.
Well, Robert Gradinger is a different story. That was a different texture. This week coming up texture is way out there.
That's true. That's true.
It reminds me, as we free jazz this, we just got into the rabbit hole of the conversation of it. Let's get to a slideshow, or how about this? I want to hear another clip because I think that hearing this audio up front helps listeners really get into what we're talking about. I'm not making fun of the album or anybody who loves this style of music, and I've grown to appreciate it, but it is a tough album to listen to if you're new to the jazz. So I had suggested that the clip I just threw.
Hang on, let me play my clip first because this is one I got pulled up real quick.
Yes,
Can we do that?
please.
All right. So the clip that I picked, the clip that you heard earlier, we kind of decided together to play that clip. But the clip that I picked was edition 1, part 2, and we're going to start right around 14 minutes and 20 seconds. So I've got
Around what time?
14:20.
Gotcha.
Where I got it queued up to start right now. So here we go. This is edition 1, part 2. All right. Maybe it's my love for the drum set because of Lady D and listening to her play and watching her perform. But that was one of the breaks that I was talking about. You heard the drums kind of just go off on a solo. And then right around 15, 20, 15, they come all back in just wailing and honking. So again, it's not that I can't appreciate the art form. It's just I like the breaks. I like the small little interludes where there is a semblance of normalcy, and then then they can go off and do whatever they want. So you want to go ahead and start slideshow?
Yeah, let's rock that slideshow. Actually, before we do, on my screen here, I want to go over who's on the album.
Yes, perfect.
So I'm going to pop up the album cover right now. The album, of course, is Ascension. On the Impulse label, it's John Coltrane. On the trumpet, you're going to hear Freddie Hubbard and Dewey Johnson. On the alto saxophone, Marion Brown and John Takai. On tenor, John Coltrane has been rocking it. Had been playing the soprano up until this album. So John Coltrane, Pharoah Sanders, and Archie Shepp on tenor sax. McCoy Tyner on piano, Art Davis on bass, Jimmy Garrison on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. So I wanted to make sure that we put that out there as we get into the information slides, as we get into the rest of the information. So there, I've done my due diligence.
Thank you.
I had to look down real quick to make sure I was recording. I'd really hate to find out that we weren't.
Yeah, good
All
check.
right, so slideshow it is.
Here we go. Whatever you do it to jazz. You know, we say it every week and we live it every week. Pretty much whatever I do, except for sleeping, I'm doing to jazz. And of course, this week, you've heard us say it a couple of times, John Coltrane's Ascension album. What do you think about the artwork? It's just kind of, for me, from my opinion, it's kind of basic. There's not a lot going on. It should be a little more colorful, I should maybe say.
Well,
for the
it's
type of album
interesting
that it is.
because right now on the slide, I know what picture you found, and I had to find one different. It is colorful. It's got the multicolored Ascension. It is very basic, and for Impulse, it's probably a little more basic. It could have actually been a Blue Note album cover.
I had to double look at it again to make sure it wasn't.
It's interesting that he's holding a soprano saxophone, staring up and out of the way.
Well,
He's kind of
okay.
looking out somewhere.
I was thinking about that too, but that could be a tenor sax that's behind his leg almost, except the mouthpiece would be a little more curved on a tenor.
Yeah. And you got buttons up there.
On the
Who's got the
soprano?
button? Yeah. And you
Okay.
can kind of see those. It's tough from where I'm sitting to see that. But
Okay.
Dad, are you looking at that? Do you have a thought?
I am, and I'm wondering if it's not a balance between the simplistic and the free stuff, a balance between real heavy stuff, and that's what I'm seeing. Very light, the white background and him sitting there. Just
Yeah.
it brings a balance. You see that?
A bit of loss.
Me too. That was a golden nugget right there. That was.
There you go, Ron Carter. There you go.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next slide. I just picked a couple of really cool pictures for Coltrane this week. That top picture, I love the blue shading. He's just wailing on the sax and concentrating. He's got his eyes closed. Blue Train is probably one of my all-time favorite jazz songs. One of my all-time favorite, top 10 for sure. So Blue Train, get it? It's shaded blue and it's John Coltrane. So that's why I picked that one. Lower left, love the black and white. Dad, you mentioned you like that picture, the concentration on his face.
Yeah.
When I think of John Coltrane, that's kind of the look that I get from Coltrane anyways, the deep in thought, concentration.
His eyebrows are furrowed.
Yeah.
I've got to picture this. I've got to go there. I've got to do this.
Yeah. And
Would you say he was somewhat of a perfectionist? And if you look at this picture, he's trying to get to a place where he can picture the perfectionistic style or go to.
I don't know. What do you think, Drew?
I'd never got the impression of a perfectionist. But I kind of wonder about that picture in that time, the 2 years in the Navy. It almost looks like it's the sea in the background. So he may have been a Navy man, a little bit more serious, but he looks too old maybe at that time to be in the Navy based on the photos from his Navy years. So I can't quite picture that. As far as being a perfectionist, I think he enjoyed the endeavor of music, but I don't think it was about pure for perfection. There was a searching, but I don't think it was for perfect. And the album Love Supreme talks a lot about what his searches were really about. So I see a deeper look in that than I do a perfectionist look.
Well, even the title of this album, Ascension, has some deeper meaning to it than what we think. So,
a love supreme, a love supreme.
Right. So the lower right picture that I picked was a piece of artwork done by Alessandro. No, I didn't spell it wrong. That's his name, Alessandro Carati. I liked it. The red background, black and white, John Coltrane. Really, really cool artwork by Alessandro. Let's move on to the jazz lingo for the day. And the word that I picked this week is chops. The word chops refers to a player's skill and technical mastery in terms of their ability to perform music. So to say that Coltrane had good chops would be an understatement. He had the best pork chops ever.
Yeah, he did.
Some of the very best sax chops that you can ask for.
There's a lot of that online when you start reading into the history about how long he would practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that in terms of I'd love to be able to get 1 hour solid of practice time, let alone 14 or 18 hours of practice time. And you just don't get to 12 hours of practicing without building those chops up over many years. And for me, the embouchure, after about an hour, I'm still done. I can only hold that mouthpiece for so long before I start to wiggle and my chops are done. So
not to mention the fact that you've got to concentrate that long. You've got to focus for 14 hours or 1 hour in our case. Yeah, if I practice for an hour, man, that's a long session.
And so the chops are as much about being able to hold it here as it is just to be able to play. How many fast runs can you have before you're out of thought, before you're out of feeling, before you're out of soul? I'm done with like 6 notes. I'm out. Okay.
I saw a quote where a guy said Coltrane practiced 25 hours a day.
Yep.
And you can believe it, couldn't you?
To hear what he's able to play at the drop of a hat on any song is amazing.
Yeah.
And I haven't dug into John Coltrane like I have Clifford Brown. Clifford Brown has recorded sessions of him just practicing, and he's practicing these lightning fast runs on his trumpet. So I can only imagine what Coltrane would sit and practice for 25 hours a day. So the chops.
The chops. All right, let's move on to where you can get it. Of course, we told you last week this album can be found on iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, LP, and CD. Now, this week I put a quote on the where you can get it slide from John Coltrane. When you begin to see the possibilities of music, you desire to do something good for people, to help humanity to free itself from its hangups. So he's a deep dude. I mean, that is a deep quote right there. Possibility of music, you desire to do something good for people to free it from its hangups.
Yeah. I've got a couple other quotes that are somewhat similar to that, where he looks at life in a very spiritual way. And he wanted his music to come out in a spiritual manner, maybe not in Christian spirituality, but generally spiritual tones to it and a spiritual method or mode to it. Yeah.
A love supreme. A love supreme. Just saying. He did search for something more deep, more powerful, more meaningful in that. And his music does reflect that. Going back over and listening to all the other albums, like A Love Supreme or Giant Steps, listening to so many other things that he has done with so many other people, you just think, man, what was he really searching for? And I would think that he was searching for that chord that David played. When he sat down to write Love Supreme, it was that chord. What did David play that pleased the Lord? Can you find it on a saxophone? According to you last week, the saxophone's a devil's horn, so no.
Hey, I saw something else this week about this. In the 1920s, let me make sure I get this right. Where did I put that? In the 1920s. I'll pull that up.
Okay.
Later.
All right.
Let me just say this generally. In the 1920s, there were a number of communities that outlawed jazz. You could not play jazz in certain communities because of what it represented. So it sounds like Coltrane was trying to break the mold.
Well, Drew, I know you and I have talked about that on our personal conversations about outlawing jazz and the way that the overall feeling was that it was not good and not clean. So just don't do it. Prohibition didn't work either.
Well, it leads into the rabbit hole. What's right and what's wrong?
Yeah.
It's down to who's got what power. And it's funny because I saw this a lot and I wasn't going to refer to it, but I will now. In 1966, they were performing tests at a college on LSD, how it frees your mind. And in 1966, the federal government banned that drug. And so whose power? Who's in control? Who's doing what? And why don't we have any music from Buddy Bolden? because the evil man threw his wax cylinder in the fire. We don't want that music getting out. Well, why not? Because it wasn't pure. It wasn't wholesome. It wasn't Little House on the Prairie. It wasn't wholesome. It left people to start wondering, can I think for myself? Can I have music for myself? Can I live life for myself? And if you're in power, you can control people like that. And if you lose that control, you lose that power. So I don't mean to go down that one. I just wanted to throw that out. I think jazz to me is the freedom to stand up and have a voice. It's the ability to do that. But I know, let's get back to the slides.
Yeah. Let's run through the information slide here real quick. John Coltrane was born in 1926 and he passed away in 1967. So that made him 40 years old. Some of the influences that I found: Lester Young, Johnny Hodges, Dexter Gordon, and Charlie Parker. I put a quote in here as well from Coltrane. Excuse me. The first time I heard Bird play, it hit me right between the eyes. So I could have added Dizzy Gillespie to the influences. I could have added Duke Ellington to the influences. Well, I was reading that after I put slideshow together that Duke Ellington really inspired Coltrane coming out of the swing era into the more bop and hard bop era, bebop. He's got 56 studio and live CDs, live albums. So 56, 23 as a sideman, and 19 singles. Now, I didn't really dive too much into the singles, but man, I tried to listen to as much Coltrane as I could this week. I didn't make it through, not even half of the 56 studio and live CDs. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. The genre that's listed for Coltrane: modal jazz, hard bop, free jazz, and I did not add avant-garde, but it is listed on the wiki page. You brought it up, so I'll mention it as well. Avant-garde. Known for, he's a musician, composer, and a band leader, just like our artist was last week, Wayne Shorter. This week, known for he's the most influential person in jazz history, and you could argue that him and Miles are the most influential people in jazz history.
Yep.
But when you say the word jazz to even a non-jazz listener, I'm pretty sure they're either going to know Miles or they're going to know John Coltrane.
Yep.
I think it would be about a 50-50 split. You ask 10 people, 5 of them will say Miles Davis, the other 5 will say Coltrane.
Yep.
He was a member of the first great quintet, which was Miles Davis's first great quintet. You're chuckling.
Always. Because I might have actually put Miles on one of those influences. He was instrumental in a lot of that too.
Sure.
Yeah. First and second quintet, baby. I love them all.
I know you do. You mentioned that he joined the Navy. He joined in 1945, right at the end of World War II. So he joined the Navy to avoid being drafted, which was a smart move. But then I was reading that he was one of the first OJT, on the job training, because he signed up to be a mechanic of some sort, and then they heard him play and they said, "Why don't you come join the band? Come join." And he's like, "That's not my MO." And they said, "We don't care. Come join the band." He was one of the first on the job training. Why that's important to me is because my friend Alex Matos was an on the job training trumpet player, and he and I, lifelong friends, passed away a few years ago. But man, if not for OJT musicians, I would have never met Alex Matos. So that's why it was important to me to highlight that fact that wasn't even his MOS, but it's just cool.
But I found it even more informational as you dig into his Navy time on Wiki. Not only was he in the music, but he was never in the band. He was always listed as a special guest because he was African American.
Yep.
In a white band at that time, he had to be listed as a special guest, which gave him more clout when he left already. You leave and you'd been a special guest performing in the Navy for a year. You've got some kudos behind you. So, and it was interesting. It's interesting times in '66, which is how free jazz also came to be. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
what a cool tidbit on him.
He's also got some chord changes named after him called Coltrane changes. So in Giant Steps, I've never played Giant Steps. Maybe you have, but it has some of the hardest chord changes in jazz. Period, and they've been coined as Coltrane changes. So I don't know. I just thought I'd put that in the known for. There's so many awards and stuff. Like we could talk for hours just on his awards and what else he's known for. This is just some of the stuff that I highlighted. 6 Degrees this week is real easy because he played directly with Miles in the First Great Quintet.
That's it.
They did a lot of stuff together anyways, besides the First Great Quintet. But yeah, the two of them side by side. Today in jazz history. Today is December the 11th. Pianist McCoy Tyner was born in 1938. Why is that important? Because McCoy Tyner's playing piano on the Ascension album. So I thought that was a cool correlation right there. You can hear more of McCoy Tyner's stuff, of course, which is what you and I did. We dove into McCoy Tyner. Was it this week or was it? I was a little farther down the list.
Farther down.
Yeah, but we dove into McCoy Tyner. And man, I'm telling you what. That's the cool thing about this journey is you read these names on the Ascension list and you're like, I don't know any of those names besides John Coltrane. Go pull up some Pharoah Sanders stuff. Go pull up some Marion Brown alto sax stuff. Yep. Go pull up Dewey Jones. Go pull up Freddie Hubbard. Rabbit hole down these guys to find out their sound, and then you can really focus in on Ascension. Yep. You can hear Freddie Hubbard on Ascension. At least I can. I don't know about Dewey Johnson when he's playing, but for me, Freddie Hubbard comes through like that candle in the night. Coleman Hawkins records Angel Face in 1947. Sorry, I'm going back to the Today in Jazz history. Coleman Hawkins records Angel Face. Duke Ellington records The Controversial Suite, and I forgot the on the slideshow, but it is The Controversial Suite in 1951. The last quote by John Coltrane, and then we'll be done. I think I was first awakened to musical exploration by Dizzy and Bird. And that picture right there is music according to St. John, right?
St. John.
Yeah.
St. John Coltrane.
St. John Coltrane. So, all right, that was a slideshow. Thanks for letting me do that again.
And there is a church, I think, in San Francisco, based around St. John Coltrane's Love Supreme. I don't know if it's current or active, but I wanted to get into 1966 right quick, and I'll have a slide for it later. However, January 11th of 1966, the first SR-71 Blackbird reconnaissance aircraft goes into service. The Chicago Bulls are granted entry into the NBA. The last Studebaker production facility is closed in 1966. Now, the Flintstones comes out. The first classic science fiction series called Star Trek premieres on NBC. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Miranda versus Arizona, June 13th, 1966. The Miranda rights. Miranda versus Arizona.
Yeah.
Civil rights movement, of course, is big kicking in 1966. So many other great things, but this is what strikes me because I'm in Austin. August 1st was a sniper on top of the university tower. Took the lives of 13 and wounds 31 people from that tower. That's significant to me because I'm in Austin, but 2 officers went to the top to shoot the gunman. I know one of them. He used to teach the motorcycle safety course at Harley when I worked there. There was a Hispanic gentleman and a Caucasian gentleman. Hispanic gentleman took the first shot, which ended the gunmen's lives. And then Phil, my friend, was up there as well. So there's a little bit of history. When I got to realize who that was, it was pretty cool. And I didn't realize that was August 1st, 1966. Also, July 31st, and in 1966, Archie Shepp passes. We lose Cecil. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got my stuff messed up. I'm sorry. July 31st, Bud Powell dies.
Okay.
Archie Shepp's Mama Too Tight album comes out. Unit Structures by Cecil Taylor comes out. Dream Weaver by Charles Lloyd. Don Cherry, who I've grown to really love. Symphony for Improvisers. Far East Suite by Duke Ellington. John Coltrane's Meditations also comes out. Of Love and Peace by Larry Young. Strange Strings by Sun Ra. Speak No Evil and Adam's Apple by Wayne Shorter. This 1966 was packed with so much information, and it's interesting that in the middle of this, free jazz is making its run. Civil rights is going. Vietnam War is going. So much is happening in the world around us, and we get to dig into a little bit of that history from 1966 through Ascension.
So you said we were in the middle of free jazz. When did the free jazz genre come to a close? Do you know, right off the top of your head?
I don't.
Maybe one of our listeners does, and they can put it in the comments. But I was just thinking, like, it was the late 50. It was 59, really, kind of when it started, and then into 66. I can't really, except for Sun Ra. I would
have to say that if I'm guessing, if I'm throwing it out there, right about into the free jazz, the end of free jazz is right into rock fusion, the jazz fusion time. But even then, through the 70s, there were still many people recording free jazz albums.
Yeah.
Some people found freedom playing with Carlos Santana, Joe Zawinul, or John McLaughlin, but others continued in that. Yeah, when and if did it die?
Here's what I'll say. Ascension didn't make the list, and of course we're using JazzWise magazine's the top 100 albums that shook the world. There was a list in 99 that they created, a list in 2006, and then this list that we're using in 2022. Ascension did not make the list in 99, and it was number 55 on the list in the 2006 list. And of course, this 2022, we're talking about number 54. So it jumped up one spot in the list. Now, it's not our list. It's the JazzWise list. I'm not sure if I was making the list that Ascension would have made the top. It wouldn't be in the 50s. If I was going to put it on there, it'd have been way back, in the 90s or, yeah.
Dad,
maybe.
What do you think? Does it deserve a spot on the top 100?
Because I'm not really into free jazz, I would agree with Matt. Let's put it way down in the 90s. But obviously, you guys have been working from that point, so you have perhaps a greater appreciation for the technical, the musical, the mastery of instrumentation. So you might have a greater appreciation for it being here, but I'm not into the free jazz stuff. It doesn't do anything for me.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Of course, we're using JazzWise, the top 100 albums that shook the world. I'll say that again, but did Ascension shake your world, Dad?
Not in a good way. I just had real difficulty listening to it, concentrating on what's happening. But I did say there were parts where I could hear the saxophone, and there were parts where the clip that you played about the drums, I recall that, and that helped me appreciate the album a little bit more. And so only a small part of it really shook me.
Okay.
In a good way.
Drew, what about you? Did it shake your world?
The first time going through it, it shook me because we were really just starting into understanding jazz. This time, it really did. I started to hear things and pay attention to things that I never thought were on that album. It shook me because as much as I thought about free jazz, what we're about to experience in some of the other albums from Cecil Taylor or Albert Eiler, those things really do move into free jazz. I heard more structure this time in the songs than I did months ago, years ago when we first did this. It continues to shake me. I agree. It probably would have been 80 or 90. It wouldn't have. It would be on the list because of the assembly of the staff, because the way in which it was recorded, because the way in which it projected what these younger musicians were bringing to the table for John Coltrane. It goes back to who played on the album, what they did, what they brought, and essentially they were reaching for something new. Out of the norm. We're not going to play in a melody structure. We're not going to play in a chord structure. We're not going to play the rhythm.
Well, then they hit the mark, didn't they?
They did. They really did. We need to break free from expectations. And I think that this album, reading more about it, it began to pave the way for more artists to do more free jazz. If Coltrane can do it and we can record it, then so more people should be able to.
Okay. Since we're talking about you and how it shook your world, let's go ahead and play your clip. The clip
Yes.
that you wanted to hear, because it wouldn't be fair if we didn't get to play your clip. The clip that, and it's funny, and I'll tell the listeners why it's funny, but the clip that you picked was Edition 2, Part 2, right around 7 minutes, 50 seconds. And before we started recording, I said, oh, my pick, no one's going to pick my pick. There's no way that... Yeah. And that was your pick, and it was my pick. I had it written down, and you said Edition 2, Part 2, and I'm like, oh
Right.
no, here we go.
I'm like, 7:45 to 8:45 because. So it what it reflects here is so much that's going on. There's just a lot of different noise, and I hope that we can convey this. I think that everybody should listen to the album at some point. Break it up by 20 minutes and then be done with it, listen to something else. But for me, and it was really interesting because I finished the album tonight just about as we were fixing dinner, and a Roy Hargrove, St. Denis came on, and it was a whole different song to me. It was just very different. So it's Ascension versus Roy Hargrove. So yeah, let's play that.
All right, here we go. That was a whole minute. So
there's so much going on in that.
Yeah, and you can tell that it's Coltrane. That's what I liked about it. That's one of the reasons why I had it written down, because you can tell that it's Coltrane on the solo. Even though there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, you know, he comes through. It's his sound, it's his tone, and you can totally tell it's him. It was just so funny that you and I picked. Oh, here's one of my notes that I wrote on my sheet today. Is it great because it's great, or is it great because it's Coltrane? So a lot of people love free jazz. A lot of people love Coltrane freestyle. But is it great because it's great, or is it great because it's Coltrane and they think they have to say that it's great? It meets our criteria. It meets the craftsmanship and the awareness, the creativity, the spirit. The emotion side this week didn't do it for me, but is it great because it's great, or is it great because it's Coltrane? What do you think, Dad?
I think it's great because of Coltrane and the mix of musicians that he had with him. I think Drew alluded to that earlier. there's some big names that are part of this album. So Coltrane, in addition to the other artists, yeah. But probably if a person were a connoisseur of free jazz, then they would say this is a great album. This is great.
I struggle with that because this is a new album to me after the first time I listened to it. What I heard this time was so very different than a year ago. We've listened to so much music and we've had the opportunity to absorb and pay attention to music. Of course, I study it so that I can play it. So I begin to hear, it's weird because free jazz would say, skip the norms. We don't want to have a rhythm. We don't want to have a key signature. We don't want to have a chord progression. We don't want modal. We don't want tones. Just don't give me consistent rhythms. And yet, if you listen to all of the different songs, the bass and the drums bring some consistent rhythming. There's some consistency in there that for free jazz was unique. And the musicians giving each other the time to play and coming together and doing their free thing that sounded like hodgepodge of messed up noises. But Matt, you said it a couple of weeks ago on one of our albums, just listen for the trumpet. What's the trumpet doing and drowned everything else out? What's Coltrane doing? Can you tell that it's Freddie Hubbard versus Dewey? Can you hear Pharoah Sanders in this? And all of a sudden you start to think, this is a new album. And so I have a lot of respect, and I think that the album is great because it is the music that was being produced at that time. I'm not going to say that it's not relevant today as it was then. It was relevant in yesterday, in 66, and it's still relevant today because it is still shaking people's world. Now, is it the first album I'm going to turn on in the morning? No. If I want to do that, I'm going to Sons of Kemet. If I need that kind of aggression and tension, I'll go to Sons of Kemet, but not this. So
it shook my world enough, and again, it met our criteria: the craftsmanship, the awareness, the creativity, the spirit. It was the emotion this week that fell short. I'm ready to rate. You ready to rate?
I am.
Okay.
Let's start with Dad.
All right. Out of a scale of 1 to 10, be honest, because we're unconnoisseurs. And go ahead, be honest.
Nothing's going to Bix you like Bix did.
Nope.
I gave this album a 3.
Okay. That's a fair score. And you know what? Me putting myself in your shoes, only listening to jazz for about 15 or 20 weeks, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
Now, Drew and I were 45 weeks in, 46 weeks in actually on Ascension. Yeah. And so, like you said, we've got a little more trained in the ear. This week, we're coming off of Wayne Shorter, okay? We did not Bix Wayne's score at all. But you're coming off of Wayne Shorter week, and you're moving, and I remember turning the page, and I'm thinking, okay, Coltrane, finally we get to listen to some Coltrane. And then you put the album on, and you're like, yeah, not what I was expecting.
No whammy, no whammy, no whammy.
So my score this week is a 6.5. And when we did it, I felt like that was a fair score. Like you said, we've grown accustomed to listening a little deeper. I would rate it a little higher this time around, but we don't change our scores. But if I could, I'd rate it a little higher. I wouldn't go too much higher.
Where would you go?
7.5 maybe.
Okay. Because I had my number changed as well.
Okay.
So when we first went through this, you're right. We left Wayne. We're excited about John Coltrane. We have some expectations that were out there. My ears were new to this, 6.5. Because the experience that we've gone through, my understanding and appreciation, I today would go to an 8.5.
Okay.
That's really fair. It stirred something in me. So I would go to 8.5. But
That's
again, it's rated at 6.5. That's where I'm going to leave it.
Yep. And you know what? We may get some hate from listeners. Why did you score it so low? But we're on connoisseurs. This is just
We're new to jazz.
We're new to jazz.
Well, we were, but now
Yeah.
we're growing in our appreciation for it.
Right.
I still don't
And-
like lima beans, but if they're there, yes, I will eat them.
If they're in casserole.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. A tater tot casserole is the only time that I'll ever eat lima beans again. Mom's tater tot casserole.
Yep.
Even then, I may pick around them depending on how hungry I am. But again, I remind ourselves almost every time we talk, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We've got a long time to listen to jazz and become a better appreciative of the free jazz style. So, with that being said, our scores are done. You want to talk about next week's artist?
I want to look at Dad. He's got his glasses on. He's getting ready to.
Yeah. We were talking about Coltrane's spirituality earlier.
Yes.
I found this quote that he wrote in 1964 in a letter to his listeners, telling of a prayer to God. In 1966, less than a year before his death, he stated, "I know that there are bad forces that bring suffering to others and misery to the world. I want to be the opposite force. I want to be the force which is truly good." That's powerful. That says this man is deep. He's a thinker. He cares. He's got compassion. He understands the forces of evil and good. May not in a Christian perspective, but this is a good quote. This is a good man.
He's Luke Skywalker
Yes.
He's torn.
fighting against Darth Vader.
Yeah.
The forces of good and evil, and if you can see the evil side, then you can see the good side. So, especially with later works with Coltrane, Love Supreme specifically. I mean, well, I of course we get to listen.
there.
Yeah, we get to listen to it whenever we want, but I hope we get there eventually to be able to discuss, a Love Supreme on the channel. Coltrane's going to come up again. I'm just going to give a spoiler. I won't tell you when, but he will come up again. You'll hear us talk about Coltrane again.
We do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to flip through my book right quick.
You're not supposed to look ahead.
No.
I'm looking back to where we've already been.
No. Look at number 41.
Oh, yeah.
So I know we've talked about how to identify jazz in the past. I don't want to complicate things, but you know Yogi Berra? And he had all kinds of crazy quotes. Okay. When asked if he could explain jazz, Yogi Berra said this: "I can't, but I will. 90% of all jazz is half improvisation. What's that word?
Improvisation.
Okay. 90% of it is just that. I can't explain it, but I can. I will." And he also said, "Anyone who understands jazz knows that you can't understand it. It's too complicated. That's what's so simple about it." Yeah. That's Yogi Berra's look at it. Anyway.
You know what? That's a quote for Mother. There.
Yeah.
We found a way to explain it.
Yeah.
We don't have to wrestle with it anymore.
No.
Yogi Berra, he figured it out for us.
I had to throw that in.
Cool.
It's interesting because improvisation is what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The head is the vehicle that's going to get you there. The solo is the ride.
Yep.
It's
And it's
Good.
an expression.
It's an expression.
What I've read more and more about learning to solo. You got to feel it. Clark Terry says, man, if you can't sing it in the back of your head while you're playing it, don't sing it at all. Think about what you want to say. If I love her and want to hold her hand, if I want to kiss her, sing that. Let it come through your mouthpiece and play that. I want to hold your hand. How are you going to play it? You said
Diddle 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 do. I want to hold your yaddle diddle diddle do. I want to hold your hand.
deedle daddle diddle doddle doddle doodle. You're a goober. So next week, next week,
Let me do it. Ready? I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it.
please do.
Next week is number 53 on the countdown. Next week is Peter Brotzman. The album is called Machine Gun. It was on the FMP label and it was released on LP and CD. Machine Gun was recorded in May of 1968, so just a couple years after Ascension. And Peter Brotzman is a tenor and Barry sax player. I don't know any of the other names on the list, and you'll have to tune in next week to find out how we rated Peter Brotzman. Dad, you're excused from next week. We'll take care of it. Take the night off.
Take the week off.
It may be a very quick episode next week. I'm just saying, it may be a very
Well, it'll be interesting. I was thinking about this the other night. I watched what is the jumbo Air Force airplane that fires that 200 shells per second kind of. The Warthog does it, but there's a big jumbo Fortress that flies that does it.
C-31,
C-130.
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 And it's like this 50 cal or 150 cal that fires machine gun, automatic gun for fast continuous firing. I wonder if there's anything that gives away what you're in for with Peter Brotzman. Take
Dad,
the week off, Dad. We are too.
I challenge you to 1 minute.
Yeah.
Put it on. Find Peter Brotzman, the album Machine Gun. Put it on for a minute. If you can take it, give us a thumbs up. If not, give us a thumbs down.
I think Dad will make it 2, but Mom, she's got less than a minute. I promise you.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think you guys next week will improvise with the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll make up a solo or two.
You'll stretch it out. Yep. I got every confidence in you.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, actually, because who's coming in the next couple of weeks, we may just spend more time talking about next week's artist on next week's show.
That's true. That's true. We've got some bangers coming up to round out the 50s. I won't give too much away, but some of our scores are very, very high in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, like and subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and set that alert button to know when the new episodes come out. Drew, why don't you tell us where they can find us?
Every week we tell you, you can find us on our website, theunconnoisseur.com. Email us, please, theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. You can find us on TikTok at The Unconnoisseur, same place as YouTube, as well as the 3 podcasts that are out there. We've got the Amazon, we've got iTunes, and we've got Spotify. So after our wrap-up of John Coltrane's Ascension, we went over and we were kind of joking and making fun of the Peter Brotzman and Machine Gun, and we got digging. It looks like we're not going to find it on iTunes. It's been removed. YouTube Music no longer has the album out there. Whoever had put it up, it's been removed. So you can probably find it on LP or CD if you've got a music store that actually had it. We did find this actual YouTube video. There's a couple of people that have pushed it out there on YouTube. It will be a YouTube video, which is just a still picture of the album cover. It is the Peter Brotzman Octet album Machine Gun. You'll find it in 2 versions. Matt, you said there was a 2001, somebody uploaded it.
2007, I'm sorry. 2007.
And that's the complete sessions. In 99, there was a additional takes, but the original 1968 album was a total of 37 minutes. So if you go to Wikipedia and bring up Peter Brotzman Octet Machine Gun, scroll to the bottom and you'll see the 3 different versions of the album that came out. We're using the 37-minute version. I don't need an alternative take 2 and 3 of Machine Gun since I can almost get through 1. Any last thoughts on that, you guys?
Nope. Thanks for putting that at the end of the episode, just so our listeners know what we're working with and where we're getting it, so we can all be on the same.
I'll drop the slideshow with that link, and in the description below, I'll put a link directly to the YouTube where you can find that. If I got that album on my side, we'll put it up on our YouTube channel as well. I can't remember if I have the actual album on downloaded. So, all right.
100% fact. Nope.
Now we're out.